Hi, and we are live with SEO Collective. Whoop, whoop. We are here the 7th of September, and we're absolutely honored and blessed here today because we are joined with, you guys will probably know her from Twitter or from your Chrome extensions with the right structured data testing Chrome extension. But we are so blessed to be here with Izzi Smith and, of course, Joshua Poole, who is our wonderful guy from Studio Hawk. Here with me is Peter Mead, my co-captain, the co-host here. And Saijo sends his apologies. He's off sick today, but we're going to get straight into it. So, Izzi Smith, thank you so much for being here with SEO Collective here in Australia.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
Yes.
Welcome,
so this
Izzi.
is your very first Australian webinar, is that right?
Yes, unfortunately it's virtual. I mean, hopefully in some months I'll be able to visit, but it is my first Australian webinar event conference. So yeah, hi everyone. Very happy to be here.
Oh, there's heaps of people here in Australia who know and really appreciate the work that you do. And we've got a good solid love from us Aussies. But to anyone who's watching this who might not know who Izzi is, Izzi, in your own words, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure, I'll try. So hi everyone. I'm a British-born person, and I now live in Munich, Germany. So this is a little bit confusing for some people, especially when they hear my accent, they can't quite place it. But I'm from Northern England, so close to Manchester. I've been living in Germany for 7 years now doing SEO. And I previously worked in-house at Sixt, which is a car rental company. And now I'm working at Ride, which is an SEO and website UX software platform, and I do all sorts of stuff there. So lots of marketing, lots of helping our customers with tricky technical SEO issues and all sorts, really. So it's a really fun, versatile job. And as well as that, I do love giving talks like this. I love really helping to spread some of my learnings with the community, and I make SEO memes occasionally, which is so you might have seen some, and there's some throughout my presentation today as well. Just a few.
On a very personal note, they're very well appreciated.
I'm glad.
Love the memes. You got to have a laugh. Love the memes.
Right. That's why I started making them. I just wanted to sort of just make a joke about the things that we are, working on that stresses out sometimes, that like a bit annoying, like a incoming Google core update. Just make a bit of fun about it and try and bring some laughs to your day. So
the brighter side of a website migration that's gone wrong, things like that.
Exactly. And you can share it on your Slack channels.
Triggered. I'm so triggered. Awesome.
That's me.
And of course, we're joined here with Joshua Poole, who's also here in Melbourne, Australia. Joshua, to everyone out there who doesn't know who you are, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Nick. Great to be here. Good to see you, Peter. Good to see you, Nick. Good to see you, Izzi. I'm, as Nick was saying, I'm Josh. I work at Studio Hawk as an SEO manager. So I manage a team of specialists, and I'm involved quite closely with the hiring and recruitment process at Studio Hawk, which is SEO agency. Also involved in the training side as well. So I love talking about SEO. I love training people on SEO, and I love hiring the right people at our agency to work with us on SEO. The various aspects I like, I like more the big picture kind of side. Whether it's sort of, a bit of technical, a bit of content or whatever's really needed. I just love the big picture, just the big picture of what we do. That's that's me. And yeah, it's great.
100%. And big picture guy, 100%. I've got the pleasure of actually working with Josh, and he's an absolute weapon. So really, really excited to be able to hear content strategy for enterprise level campaigns and things like that, especially as you work on some of our larger enterprise level accounts, and have been able to see some tremendous growth there as well. So don't share too many of the hot tips, but at the same time, this like will be. I'm so looking forward to this. And of course, Peter Mead, our co-host, but also very much the godfather of SEO here in Australia. I'm sorry, I'm kind of introducing you a little bit there, but I feel like you always, you're always eating humble pie. You never spook that one. So right off the bat, I thought I'd just kind of throw it out there. But Peter, what have we got here today when we're looking at the news and such? Do you want to also, give a bit of a shout out as well?
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for the intro, and I think the Godfather thing has got a lot to do with my whiskers being a bit grey, and being a bit of an old guy. I guess so far as myself, I've been doing this kind of thing for quite a while, but there's so many more smarter people in SEO than I am, and I always look to them for how to go about things. So that's my humble pie deflection. And what we should probably acknowledge is Nik Ranger. And Nik is one of the most talented and prolific SEO people I know of. Tireless worker. I spent a lot of time with Nik, and hands-on all the time, and has a phenomenal amount of experience, and plus is such a big giver to the community, and always seems to be involved in just about every community event there is. And so I take my hat off to you, Nik Ranger. Thank you for pulling all this together for us.
Oh,
Yay.
gosh.
Yay, Nik.
All right. Well, very much appreciated. But with 20 plus years experience on your belt, I very much look to you for a lot of advice. Let's get into it, because this is turning into a really, really pleasant love fest. But you know what? Here in the world of SEO, we always want to go back to the why, and SEO Collective really is here as a volunteer-led initiative to be able to provide, what's happening in SEO, what is actually relevant to people with their sites, what are the things that they're wanting to know, and of course, to be able to get some of the world's best SEOs, that are joined here with me right now, to be able to share some really, really great hot tips, pointers, ways that they've been able to attack some of the bigger, the big picture problems, to be able to break it down into small, manageable pieces so that you can be able to do it too. So what's happened in SEO here in August? So it's been a bit of a buzz. The first thing that I'm going to want to chat about is, of course, Google is rewriting page titles in the search results. So this is one that I think is just kind of dominating the conversation, and especially dominating Twitter. Look, they've started to do this, and they released a webmaster blog to really say, look, this isn't something that is going away. This is something that we're going to go through, be able to reinforce. From my own personal perspective, and these are thoughts of mine and mine alone, I feel like Google has been saying that they're wanting to match user experience and user intent. And this is just another adage of them saying, what is user facing is actually on page, the on page that people see, the heading structures, the paragraph text, internal links that are embedded within that, all of those other wonderful things that really when someone actually clicks from the SERP to a page, what they actually see. So not super surprised, but at the same time, as you can probably imagine, that's had massive ripple shock waves, because something maybe they didn't consider, or maybe that they did, who knows. A lot of the layouts and things like that don't come built in with heading 1 placeholders. So for a lot of that, SEOs rely on the title tag and the meta description space to be able to make sure that what those pages are about are actually meeting the right audience. I'll just take it to really quickly to the panel. Guys, have you seen that being affected by your clients on the ground?
Well, yeah, I guess it's hurting lots of people, and it was bread and butter to go and optimize your title tags, and yeah, I guess it's money right there, losing losing out because you're not getting those clicks. Yeah,
100%.
I just want to add too, it's just way more widespread than I thought it was going to be. I think when we first saw like on Twitter and a bit of documentation, I think Google released a blog about it. It wasn't, until we actually saw it like happening. Yeah, it was much more widespread than I thought. Some of my client sites are, really affected actually.
Yeah. Like, I was on vacation last week, so I could kind of just back away as soon as this appeared. I was like all the fire and then bye. But I've been keeping an eye on it, and I have sort of mixed opinions on this. So like on one hand, I think some SEOs were really overambitious with the sort of meta title space and really cramming as many keywords in there as possible. It wasn't so great. So I think Google really tried to take over this and try to do it from the user's perspective. But they're, we've seen some examples out there where they're failing massively. For example, the Tax Institute in the UK, their main homepage title is now like tax evasion or something ridiculous that is being taken from some sort of internal help article anchor text. It's ridiculous. So on one hand, it is, I think, on a positive side, going to make sure we have this kind of consistency throughout our website for specific pages, with the H1, with incoming anchor text and so on. But on the other side, Google has a lot to do here in order to make sure it works for the benefit of users and for site owners. Because, there's issues right now. And I'm also concerned that because in PPC or in SEA, they have control over their ads and the title content there. So, they're going to stand out more again, and potentially organic is going to see fewer clicks. So I'm a little bit concerned, but let's see.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And that's, we are 100% seeing some impacts in the SERPs. And I know that there's some intermediary studies and things like that are, producing percentage differences, and, how much of the H1s are being there and replacing, title tags and things like that. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting one just to be able to see, how we as a collective go through and be able to mitigate that. All right. Also, what happens that I think dominated a lot of the conversation was that Google Search Console lost data from the 23rd to the 24th. We're not probably going to get that data back. It is what it is. And I know that, like, for a lot of us, like when we're looking at aggregation and things like that, we're having to have these conversations with our clients, like, what happened? Why is this? What did we do something wrong? Was there some kind of technical issue where the whole thing got no index? And it was a little bit like, I'm gonna have to see. And of course, Google came out and said, sorry, made a bit of a boo-boo. We did lose that data. My bad. And it is what it is. But you guys had the same kind of conversations with your clients in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, so at Right, we build a lot with GSC data, because for us it's like the best quality data. And I've been like trying to advise our customer teams, you know, like if your customers are like, where is my data? We're gonna have to be like, no, that's Google. And the scary thing is they can sometimes in these instances kind of go back and you know, try and find this data, put something together, but they've said, no, it's gone for good, which, you know, is worrying, because imagine if, you know, during these days you had a lot of activity and you can't track that anymore. And so definitely my advice to everyone is really annotate your charts and your documentation to make sure that in some months or next year you're aware of what happened. It wasn't this, you know, random anomaly where again, you know, you had a lot of indexing issues or something.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, you know, Google is a tech company, software company, which relies on database records and, you know, internet connectivity, whatever else, you know, network, whatever kinds of things that are happening behind the scenes inside the machine. And I think maybe people kind of might think that they're a bit infallible, but hey, the data's gone, right? Those records are lost. This happens in tech companies. You know, database records do get lost sometimes, and this is the way it is.
Yeah. And it's not the first rodeo, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last.
sorry, not sorry.
Who would like that?
I just said to a client, it was short and sweet, I just said, lucky it was only one day. Only lasted one day, so yeah.
Yep, I think so. Also too, so Google has now announced some new ways to be able to find deals, to be able to shop with Google Merchant Center. So they're automatically surfaced to shoppers regardless of whether the merchant's advisors on Google. So those promotions are, you know, uploaded and things like that. So I don't know if you guys like, you know, work with a lot of e-commerce retailers and things like that, but, you know, definitely as the holiday shopping season comes up, you know, Black Friday, obviously the Christmas season, we're now here in September and it's basically on our doors. And this is a really, really nice time that, you know, Google has sort of come out and been like, you know what, we're going to be launching some new sections. We're going to be able to do this. And of course, we've sort of seen a nice evolution from paid to now, like, you know, organic, being able to have those results be able to populate in the SERPs. So with those new deals sections, you know, deals related to your search, this could be a really, really nice way to be able to be found for some more semantically related keywords. And particularly in the event of the lead up to Black Friday, I definitely do encourage people to be able to go into your Google Merchant Center. If you haven't set it up with the organic section, it is just, you know, an opportunity that's just sitting there on the table. Get in there, see what you can be able to do, and with these new changes, you know, see what you can be able to figure out. Have you guys sort of looked at your clients and thought about you know, these new changes, or, you know, have you even just like you know, done the organic you know, build out with Google Merchant Center?
No,
Not yet.
not my thing.
Not yet.
Yeah, haven't done too much of a deep dive, but have noticed that there are some niches really benefiting from this. One that comes to mind is furniture. Anyone in the furniture space watching this definitely needs to make sure that they're using their Google Merchant Center and all their organic listings are up, because that's definitely a winner. Anything furniture, clothing as well is a big one. But haven't done too personal of a deep dive into it. But yeah, there are some niches that are winning from this. So if you're in those, yeah, definitely check it out.
It's funny you say you haven't done a personal deep dive, but at the same time, I know you pretty well, bud. And I know that like when it came out, like with the organic, you know, that there were organic listings even available on Merchant Center. You did a training session with all of the team about that. So just got to kind of call you out right there. Like, I do know that you've been doing, you know, some pretty active things in that space, but, you know, this is something that really has just been available really in the last month or so. And, as these changes do roll out, there are just more opportunity that's on the table. Sorry to call you out there a little bit, but in a nice way.
There's so many like major updates at the moment. It's like it's just constant. It's just constant things coming through.
Absolutely. So Google is adding another URL property to be able to identify authors and things like that. That's something that like even you were talking about with me, Peter, before this. So, Google's been trying to identify authors of online articles for quite a while now. And of course, in the, with Google EAT, really coming into the fold, and a lot of SEOs having a lot of chatter as to, okay, well, what are the key signals that we need to be able to do? What are the kinds of things that we need to be able to, give the clear recommendations to our clients for us? On the other side, Google really wants to be able to add more URL properties to be able to identify, who is the author of this content, to be able to figure out this a lot better. So with by adding like a recommended author URL property, it's basically like a link to a page that identifies the author of that article. So these are the things that I think I'm even thinking like the checklist that I made, like, to be able to go through and be able to assess on blog pages. Make sure that like whoever has written that article, that they're actually the best person to write that article. And if they're just a copywriter, maybe use like review by schema and things like that there. But if they've written it, have it right up there in the above fold. Have like, by John Smith, MD, or something like that, and a clear, internal link that goes back to their user profile. And of course, structured data is a really, really great way to be able to make sure that those connections and synapses have been made, that bots can go through, follow, understand, and of course be able to pass, to be able to evaluate that expertise. So that's been a really, really nice little way that that they've been able to make sure that those kinds of things are being checked and those synapses are being crawled, and to be able to find that association. But it is a really, really nice one to know that Google is making more amendments and things like that to be able to go through and actually properly make those assessments. Particularly if we're going to be working so hard to be able to get them in there.
Yeah, probably Izzy's got more to say about this than I have, but I think that this is especially schema related and everything. But I guess for me, it's more like this is kind of really the progress, the direction that it's going in, because like with all of the content that's just published, like every single day, so many pages of content like copied and scraped, and how are they going to differentiate what's good quality and what are they going to bother to index, that kind of thing. I mean, this is another thing which we're finding, is that getting indexed is not as easy as it used to be. And so what are the things we're going to need to do? And this is pretty much the breadcrumbs for that. The bread trail. They're telling us, go ahead, do these things. These are the kind of things, if you want a genuine results, you need to do this stuff. So what do you think, Izzy?
No, I totally agree. I think it's getting more difficult in terms of proving this quality, and I think there's more hurdles to overcome. But as a consumer of search, I'm kind of okay with that, because I don't want to be sort of fooled into reading misinformation or incorrect data, because it's so easy to get your information out there. So I'm kind of behind these initiatives. And I know that Google has been working a lot on trying to understand this, and from very implicit ways, very implied ways of, the author name, the type of topics that they write about. So really trying to piece this together. So I think the more explicit information you can provide there, the better. So I think it's good that we have these additional initiatives. And maybe some of us thought that Google would be there by now and not need this really explicit information, but it's always better to provide this than make false assumptions and have these, false positives in place. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of this.
100%, especially on those assumptions. Like when we kind of rely on Google to just do what we think is the most logical thing. More often than not, like we're basically being taught like silver platter, please, everything right here. I don't want to have to do any more work than just be like, okay, I get it. That's pretty much what, those kinds of things. Just becoming more and more clear every year that I put on the board with being an SEO, that we really need to be able to make sure that there is no room for misinterpretation.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Yeah. Oh man, we're getting Izzi Smith to like talk about this stuff. This is awesome.
I wasn't prepared for structured data talk next time.
Oh no. Of course. But of course, I also, I follow you on Twitter, so this is a nice little moment for me as well.
I follow you on Twitter. It's a nice moment for me.
Oh, this is so nice.
Yeah.
Dreams are coming true. Well, okay, so it's 6:25. I'm just very mindful of time, because, Izzi is here from Germany, and, I don't want to take too much of her precious time, or Josh's or Peter's. So I'm going to maybe, head off to you, Izzi, and maybe just cap it here for the news for now. But just, for anyone else that, is really interested in, just following what the news are. I mean, look, there was a case study that was released by Google for larger images, better click-through rate, there's like, new expanded text ads and things like that. With the Discover, like just improving the click-through rate for that. Look, all this wonderful stuff, like all the new changes and things like that, because Saijo George is our wonderful guy that usually reads off the news. I do encourage everyone to take a look at TLDR Marketing. It is a newsletter that is current here, right here, being built and made and updated here in Melbourne, Australia. And Saijo, our wonderful co-host, is the champion of that. So please, if you're wanting to know more about news and what's happening, give that a bit of a subscription, and straight into your inbox. New stuff happens there all the time. So that's great. Izzi, without further ado, would love to hear about Core Web Vitals, as it's been, again, a massive hot topic.
Oh, yeah.
And all of us are on our edge of our seats.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nick. I'll take it away. So I already introduced myself, but here is another slide. Can you see my slides? Just worth noting the final points. I would rather be having a beer right now because I live in Munich, which has arguably the best beer in the world, but it is 10 a.m. Over in Germany. And, during my time, during the pandemic, I've been playing a lot of video games, I've been cooking, I've been trying to work out, trying my best. And I've also been busy doing a lot of advocating for Core Web Vitals and why businesses need to spend more time and pay more attention to their website user experience. So I've been on a mission. So just to recap through Core Web Vitals and what they are, so that we're all on the same page today, we have, first of all, largest contentful pane. And this metric reports the render time of the largest image or the largest text block visible within the viewport. So this is measuring the loading speed of the page in a nutshell. Then we have first input delay, which is all about interactivity. And this helps estimate and measure when that user can first interact with a page's core elements. And finally, we have CLS, all about visual stability. So this helps us quantify unexpected layout shifts and helps, determine how stable this page is visually. So just, if you're browsing a page and something jumps into view as you're about to click on the link and then you go to the wrong page, it's really frustrating. And these three metrics come together to create the Core Web Vitals. So they really try to encompass a page's performance and experience as well there. But it's not always easy to improve these scores. I've been trying to help out multiple clients. I've been trying to help out friends. I've been trying to help out everyone and the general community, but sometimes they're just throwing general excuses my way whenever, such as, well, this page experience update is just going to keep getting postponed. Yes, this excuse is thrown around a lot, and it finished rolling out in mid-August. People are saying that their site is fast and stable enough. And also a lot of excuses come my way that they just need to be better than their competitors in order to get this kind of ranking boost from the Web Vitals. And then again, another sort of excuse is it's not even going to be a big ranking factor anyway. And my response is please, 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 people of the community, please stop kidding yourselves. This is a very important chance for us to really improve and create higher quality experiences on our website. And I know it's difficult. 2021 has been a tricky year to be in SEO. There's been, mobile first indexing, the page experience, has been 2 core updates in one summer, there's been spam updates, there's been the title rewriting. There's been a lot of things that deserve our attention as well. So it is tricky. But again, like Web Vitals leads to web successes. It leads to the stronger website user experience. And I'm a big fan of Jono Alderson. He says a lot of stuff on Twitter. Like, for example, it's a mistake to think that Core Vitals measure performance. They don't. They measure technical debt. They measure user centricity, strategy, quality. They measure if your brand deserves to be featured in a consideration set. Be more concerned. And Jono is concerned, like I am, that other people aren't concerned. So thank you, Jono. But surely everyone for years, like you in the audience, you've been eager to clean up your websites and implement healthier ways of gathering traffic and for improving user experience. So what is getting in your way? Well, I took it to myself to ask the community over on Twitter of, what is stopping them from getting those improvement shipped? And this poll got around 300 responses, so not too many, but I think enough to get a good assumption that, of course, it's usually around the lack of budget and resources, but a lot of people are on it. 30% are on it, which is pretty nice. But a worrying amount of people say it's not a high priority for them. And also 13% of people think their site is good enough. But surprisingly enough, again, people claim that there just aren't enough budget or resources. And I was gathering some comments, not all of them are on this presentation, but it just showed that some people had already given up. They already realized that they're in a huge mess and maybe they're regretting not acting before. Because where is it? Yeah. So this comment at the top there, so we can't forget for some sites to pass the Core Vital would cost tens of thousands of pounds or Australian dollars that they might not have. But what is a 5-figure price compared to all the lost conversions that are, not happening because people have left your website? Or because people are contacting your customer support, and that's, costing a lot of internal costs because they can't find the information they're looking for. So there's so many different things to consider here. And passing Core Vital scores for the sake of your users should not be a luxury. Actually, when we look at the comprising checks for page experience, these 4 down there should be, in my opinion, actual fundamental to rank. So having secure pages, people's information and data is protected. The ability to use and access your content on all devices. In my opinion, this should be this prerequisite to rank. But no one told my doctor, I know it's in German, but you just need to look at this not secure up there. This is a house doctor, right? And all when you request a booking there, this information is sent over a non-secure network. So there's no SSL encryption there. Yeah, not good. And important resources still aren't even responsive or using the correct viewport specification. So when I'm trying to read information on, Corona in Germany, I can't read that. Who can read that? This is terrible. So I got to thinking, I got thinking, how widespread are these issues? Is it just a handful of smaller domains like my doctor? What is going on? So our website's ready for the page experience update. So I started investigating like Sherlock. And I used a number of tools to do this analysis. I used Chrome Lighthouse and developer tools. I'm going to be showing a lot of screenshots today of my investigations. And I think you can keep up. Don't worry. I can send the slides around, of course. I'm going to be jumping around tools. I'm also using page speed insights to get some more diagnostics into the information of those different websites. I'm really hungry. I didn't eat breakfast, so if you hear some weird tummy rumbles, that's me. Should have had some breakfast. That's the important lesson, people. And I'm also using the Right Web Vitals report. So what we do here is we're crawling an entire website, and as well as retrieving, important information for content and, technical health, we're also analyzing your web vitals in bulk. So this was really helpful for me to just understand how these websites are performing in, the total picture, and not just one page, not just the home page and maybe the magazine homepage. Yes, I normally use lab data to run my diagnostics because the results are reproducible. In my opinion, they're better for debugging, and you can also get a better understanding of whether your changes had a direct effect or not. Because with lab data, you can get instant results, whereas with field data reports, it's usually an aggregate over the past 28 days. And in this sort of diagram here, if you're more newer to this topic, I just do a quick comparison of lab data versus field data and, what you can find in those different tools. So for example, lab data, it is more, synthetic data collected with predefined network settings and devices, which is really good for, reproducing results. So for your developers, they can grab this information really quickly, and it's just much easier to isolate those issues. But it doesn't always capture real world problems, because maybe you're seeing a lower a higher largest contentful page, but actually the page is quite fast for people. And field data tries to capture the real world experience, so it can be better to correlate with business KPIs, but there's definitely limited capabilities for debugging. And you do have to have a significant amount of traffic and interactions with the page before Google can calculate that score for you. So if you're, not as established, you're a smaller website, you're not getting that much traffic, actually you need a lot of visitors to get this field data in most of the tools. So yeah, it's not so useful for those instances. So yeah, I started investigating, and earlier this year I did 2 big studies focusing around the DACH markets. So that's Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. I took the top e-commerce domains, I crawled them. We did mobile and desktop, but I focused on mobile just because of the significance. And yeah, again, it's lab data. Then I did the same for the UK. I would have loved to have done the same for Australia, but I'm sorry, I ran out of time. But if you do want to get the sort of full rundown, and there's definitely comparisons, there's similarities there, you can read it in the study. But just as the TLDR here, we found that actually these e-commerce websites are really struggling with their core vital scores. So the averages were way, way below where they should be. The performance scores are really low. I was surprised that the UK was not as good as Germany. Like, as I'm from the UK and I live in Germany, I sort of have enough experience to say that German websites are pretty poor. Like, not all of them, I'm sorry. But some of them are a bit more old school in their tactics and their SEO strategies. Some are really good quality, but I just see a lot of failures over here as well. And then, this study was done in April. So I thought recently, have they improved now that there's been more gravity towards core vitals in the page experience update? So 6 months later, I did the same analysis, and I found that actually the websites were worse, aside from CLS. But the CLS calculation has improved over this time, so that's probably why it looks a little bit better. Which is quite sad. I was like, no, these websites are not so ready. So I wanted to dig deeper. And that's why I'm here today, to share with you what was going on with these slow and low performance websites. For the fun of it, well, maybe, but also to prove to you and to help you prove to stakeholders that Web Vital fixes don't need to be so painful. They don't need to be so difficult. It is not just one small task for your developers. It is something that SEOs like us can really advocate for. We can really sink our teeth into these issues, get a better understanding of our websites and our user experiences, and also to show you just how bad it can be if you push these issues under the carpet. So I'm showing you some real world cases today. I have around 6 websites that I'm going to just quickly look at. I'm going to try and be mindful of the time, but Nick, please kick me if I'm running over significantly.
What's time? What's
what is this construct, right?
As the co-host, I'm very interested in this, so I think everyone else will be.
Awesome.
100%.
Cool. I have around 100 more slides to get through, but some of them are pretty quick. But let's do this. So again, I'm not trying to name and shame. A lot of these businesses I have a lot of respect for. Some of them are customers. Some of them are people that I mean well for. One of them is my own website. And I just also in this process want to show you how I run my analyses. If you're more advanced in technical SEO, you're going to have your own methods, and that's totally fine as well. There's always many different ways of achieving something, of running these diagnostics and audits, don't worry. But maybe if you're newer to Web Vitals, you're getting more involved in performance and this side of SEO, then hopefully you get some inspiration of what to look for and how to run these audits. And doing this audit and this sort of practice, I grouped the issues I found most frequently and I named them as my Web Vital woes. So dramatic. And the first case is Brewdog. Are you aware of Brewdog in Australia? Yeah. I'm seeing some nods.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's lovely stuff.
Isn't it?
It's
delicious. It's also
yummy.
A pretty noble company that started off really small, so a small craft brewery that's now I think become one of the biggest craft breweries in the world. And they have lots of different beers available, lots to try, some really cool pubs. They're also very, I didn't know that there was comments popping up. How cool.
Yeah, so I'm just sort of filtering them in. We do have a pretty technical audience on the reg, so Gaston was just let's do it, let's get into it.
Yeah.
Here for
Love it. That's great. I mean, I do try and make sure my content is a bit more versatile for many different expertise levels. So hopefully, there's something for everyone here, but let's see. Anyway, so Brewdog, I love their beer. I love their company, but they have such a bad website. My goodness. I mean, no offense to them. They're busy off, fighting and creating more climate neutral products. They're doing a lot of cool stuff in this area. Their website maybe isn't the highest priority for them, but they're missing out on so much here. So when I run the Web Vital analysis, 100% of their website, of their pages are getting a poor performance score. But let's narrow down the directories here. I want to narrow down the scope to the product pages, because if I'm the SEO for Brewdog, which I'm not, but hey, Brewdog, get in touch. I will swap some tips for some free beers. In order to get some executive buy-in, I would first prove the fact that real cash money is at stake here, real user experiences, customer experiences, and so on. So I'm just going to ignore the rest, so the sort of content levels there, and I'm going to really focus there on their sort of shop pages and see what's going on. And what's really important for you is to also find structural issues in the templates that can be resolved and then have a more widespread effect over larger parts of the website. So maybe there's one problem with all product pages. You get this resolved and you're going to see the best impact. So really try and look for those. And I'm also going to try and prioritize based on a meaningful KPI like incoming clicks, which, I don't have the GSC connection of Brewdog, unfortunately, but if I would, then I would also use this as another prioritization metric as well. So I'm going to use performance score here, and I'm going to pick this random gin page because, Nick's got some gin, and I didn't even know Brewdog did gin. Cheers. Cheers with some, that's water, not gin, but yeah. So let's pick this random one. And when I also jump into the sort of deep dive here of the diagnostics, we can also see again that most metrics are really bad, but we have to start somewhere. So I'm going to take total blocking time here because 600 milliseconds is the sort of, it's the poor cutoff point for total blocking time. And theirs is 1,800, which is quite high. So we're going to focus on this first. By the way, it's a little handy tip. In Lighthouse 8 and 8.1, you can now filter by which web vital you're improving. So if you're really overwhelmed like I was in this audit, you can just sort of toggle those on and off and just get some hints of what to do. So already they're saying you need to reduce the impact of third-party code. And to start, we can identify, what is really causing those long total blocking times. And I'm going to, again, pop over to the sources tab in Chrome DevTools here. I hope you're following my journey there. And I can see all of the resources that the page has loaded. This is a ridiculously long list of different origins from across the web, including tracking scripts that have fired before I've even given my consent. Now, maybe this is more of a EU GDPR thing, but to be compliant, you can only fire those tracking scripts when someone has opted in and accepted the sort of cookie policy there. So that's how Right does it. So you accept it, and then you see all those scripts appear. So when I also look into their GDPR reports, Brewdog is not doing so well with the non-compliant violations, but let's not dig too much into that today. That's another story. But this made me think, maybe there's a whole load going on that meets the eye. So I'm going back to the performance tab here in DevTools, where we can visualize if there's some issues going on with too many scripts. And we can also see the sort of waterfall where the scripts that are being downloaded by the browser and then being processed so that they can be, implemented on the page. And let's see what's going on. So here's the waterfall. Here's all of these little tiny resources that the browser needs to process. All of these trips, all of these smaller, this is a lot, right? This is really outrageous here. So more comments, exactly, Magneto, Wait, not Magneto. Magento. I always get those two mixed. Magento.
I'm never going to think of Magento as that again. I was going to be Magneto.
Magneto. Right.
Wolverine.
Yeah. The other great CMS, Wolverine. So my first Web Vital woe that I came across a lot in my analyses was there's too many third-party scripts that are impacting the critical rendering path. So it can easily happen to you that so many stakeholders get involved in website activities, so many teams, so many different marketing channels. They need their tracking scripts, they need their tools, they need their cookies, their advertising iframes and all sorts within a single page. And this isn't just bad for performance, it's also, as it's taking up valuable time on the critical rendering path when, someone's input needs to take place. But there's also some privacy and security concerns going on there too. A nice little tool to find out all these different scripts and tools that a website is built with is called Built With. And you can get an overview of those technologies like Magneto, what Brewdog is using on their website. And of course, some of these third-party scripts and resources are important, but any of those necessary scripts need to be deferred or loaded asynchronously. That's the sort of resolution here. And there's two different ways of doing this, async and defer. So really, sorry, microphone. Unless there is a specific reason not to, all third-party scripts should be loaded with defer or async by default. So there's a few sort of differences between the two, whereas, JavaScript files with the async attribute will run in no particular order as soon as they're loaded, whereas deferred resources run in sequence, so in the order you see in the HTML. So I'd sort of say, it's best to use defer for your lower priority scripts there. But that's just the general rule of thumb for these third-party scripts. And speaking of this, let's go back to our list. There's more going on here. It's not just those third-party resources. So when I expand the URL here, I can also see all their assets going on in the page, the CSS, the JavaScript files, etc. It's not just the third-party scripts. It's also Brewdog's own self-hosted JS and CSS files are causing complications, and the list doesn't just stop here. Actually, there's a heck loads of files going on, so it's each file needs to be again downloaded. It's a lot of latency going on there. I reached 202 assets that had a conceivable file size, which is quite a lot. Another little tip as well with your tooling is you can use in Lighthouse 8, you can view this tree map, so you can get a really good overview. You can see a sort of breakdown of any shipped JavaScript, and you can filter by size and coverage on load. And I think it's a neat way of viewing bundles as well. I'm going to go into bundles in a short while. We can already see that there is 8 megabytes of JavaScript on this page. And also uses the little toggle to see that over half of all this JavaScript isn't even used on the page. Now, in total, 8 megabytes is around 11 minutes of music streamed over an average quality on Spotify. But don't tell your visitors using data roaming. And that's also around 15 seconds of the never gonna give you up video. Now, this is probably a good way of selling it to your stakeholders, to your management, that this needs to be improved.
So are you telling us to rickroll our clients? Is that what you're saying? You heard it here first. You heard it here first.
That's the new tactic. No one can ignore a rickroll.
Exactly.
You just have to rickroll them for the sort of the amount of seconds that it takes. Yeah. And again, you can view in the tree map viewer how much of that JavaScript is not being used. Also dig into the coverage order in DevTools. Sorry again if you're confused that I'm switching between all the different tools, but I'm just showing you that most things can be achieved in different ways. And also when you click on that, you can see all the different styles and classes that haven't been used. But please try and be sensible here. Have a responsible developer with you when you make these assumptions, because some of these rules might be important for other interactions on the page. So normally it's shown as unused if it's not critical and therefore not needed for the page's first render, first functionality. But definitely there's always ways that this can be optimized. So my second Web Vital woe is revolving around there being just no order or prioritization for your JavaScript and CSS assets. They're all just shoved in big chunks, and they take up valuable time and space on the main thread, therefore slowing down the page load and not being able to process a user's input. And to explain this problem in a little bit more detail, these kind of things affect metrics like first input delay and total blocking time, because in general, input delay happens because this browser's main thread is busy doing something else. So it can't respond to the user's interaction. Normally this happens because the browser is busy parsing and executing large JavaScript files that need to be loaded in order to support the page's functionality. So here in this diagram that I pulled from Chrome's dev Chrome dev resources that have lots of great documents. We can see that this page is making a couple of network requests for resources. So that's usually your CSS and JavaScript files. And after those resources are finished downloading, they're processed on the main thread. So that's when the main thread is busy during those yellow blocks there. And then it can't process the user's request. So if I'm trying to interact with a page, if I'm trying to maybe make a scroll or hit a button, use a link, I can't because the browser's too busy processing all those JavaScript and CSS files. And it means, if there's no prioritization, the main thread's task queue is elongated and it goes on for a much longer amount of time. So it's not just like impacting interactivity, it's impacting load time as well. So what can we do about it? Here's a wonderful diagram I made of JavaScript and CSS files. And I need these for my page's functionality. They're all separate files to style and provide functionality to different elements. But each of them needs to be evaluated, parsed, processed, rendered, etc. So what can we do? We can bundle them up together. We can here create just one JavaScript file, one CSS file. This way we can reduce latency and overhead on the initial load. There's a smaller amount of requests to process. However, these files can become really heavy for the browser, and it can tend to lead to lots of unnecessary scripts being loaded in the first instance. So it could be rendering some functionalities that most website visitors won't even interact with. So maybe some kind of like function and some kind of share to social media button that is way down on the page that no one even clicks, right? So we can then employ something like code splitting, which will split files up into more logical files, like and then cleverly highlight and get those most critical code needed for the first render, the first paint, and bundle these together into your critical assets and your non-critical bundles. It is a very beautiful process. And it's not too outrageous. It's not too difficult. I'm by no means a developer, but there are in existence really modern bundlers like Webpack. That's one of the most popular ones that can do this to sort of merge modules or components that should be included statically together in a single file. And this can also be used natively with some frameworks like React. And it is a very accessible optimization that can really, really support your Web Vital improvements. Now, another thing I noticed when using Brewdog's website on their product pages was on mobile devices. Again, I focus on mobile. There was this image slider. I don't know if you can see, it's really weird. It's those white rectangles down there. This is apparently an image slider button, which you never would have guessed provided any value. And what this does is then it loads in some new images. And each of these images are really unnecessarily large in file size. There is no compression going on, no resizing, no image SRC set. That grapefruit, I think it's a grapefruit or some kind of blood orange or something fancy, is another 3 megabytes for your poor data plan. So again, you didn't even know that this was a slider. It's an interactive one, and hidden behind are images that you shouldn't have even loaded. What? So my third Web Vital woe is about images, because a lot can go wrong with images. Now, image performance, image optimization, it deserves its very own talk. I could be sitting here for hours and hours and hours about this topic, but today I'm just going to focus on, this whole topic of having unnecessarily heavy images, because it's quite a quick and easy thing to rectify. There's a lot of plugins out there that just immediately compress and resize images as you upload it to your content management system. I wanted to do a second case study of Lush. I love Lush. They smell amazing. And
I can hear an audible scoff, I think, from a colleague who we were literally going through this website this morning with their new redesign.
Yes. some
Very
issues
quickly.
going on there.
Yeah, very quickly. What do you think of Lush's new redesign of their website?
When I did this audit, I was really shocked, actually, because they've missed some huge fundamentals. For example, they've redirected the old URLs to the homepage.
Oh, that's just a site migration, like 101. No,
Right?
no.
Yeah. What else did you find? What do you think?
Well, oh gosh.
Can
I
I
don't want to
just
get
on
this.
that?
Yeah.
Sorry, can I just for any of our viewers who are not sure what the problem is with that redirection, just want to maybe, yes, it does happen. It's quite a common thing, and actually some people do it as a lazy way of handling redirection issues, but it is a problem. It causes soft 404s, and it causes it just sends traffic to the wrong place. The crawlers
And it can also it can also like ignore canonicals as well, like if they're there for a little bit, which
I mean, there's so many things with that, but I just thought I'd clarify that just for because it is a problem.
Yeah. But I'm not gonna take this into a lush direction. I'm sorry. As soon as I saw it, I just had to give a bit of a shout out. Because we were looking at this earlier today. But sorry, please go on.
No, I'm glad you jumped in. Like I was like, am I the only one who's seeing this? And I really would love to help Lush out again. Swap some tips for some free bath bombs. I'm a big fan of Lush and their their beliefs and their ethics. They have great products. They have very commendable values. But their website migration, questionable. Of course, Lush has a lot of visually appealing products, and they need to show those off. And they need to use high quality images, and they even use a lot of videos and GIFs. And this can be very, very challenging. Now, I identified quite a few issues of theirs last December. So I did a sort of quick analysis in December 2020, and they were struggling, but not too much. I mean, like a huge portion of their website was more around needing improvement. And actually in April of this year, they have resolved a lot of those issues with the relaunch. So there was some good things to come out of it. And I just wanted to show you what they've improved on. So I focused, first of all, on their product and store pages. Again, the ones with high business value. For example, with store pages in particular, the intent is to find local information. So the name, address, and phone number. It's maybe sought out while you're on the go, while you're on the train, while you're walking on the high street. So these pages are usually retrieved on mobile devices, and they need to be snappy. They need to load very quickly. But they have these huge hero images of the store, this photo up here. And these images are so huge. I mean, this is probably around 10 seconds of Rick rolling this 5.4 megabyte image. And this was contributing to really, really high largest contentful paints, among other things. But in their new store pages, they've really cut these down. They've created more lightweight images. So now it's only 151 kilobytes. I mean, maybe this could even be compressed even more. Maybe they could use WebP, which is the more higher performance image file type. And this has led to some really bad low performance scores and high large contentful paints to a much more improved one. So there's still a lot of things for them to remedy, but yeah, it's much better now. Another thing that they have improved with their website migration, again, good sides and bad sides, is they previously had these ingredient lists tucked away on their product pages because ingredients are very important for their organic ethos. They only use natural and sustainable products. But each of these ingredients had its own unoptimized and undeferred image. And this was a huge mistake because all of those heavy images needed to be loaded despite the fact visitors might not even open this menu. So that was, again, another big payload for the page. All of their product detail pages had these, just like this bath bomb that had 23 unoptimized images tucked away under the page. And yeah, not many people are going to even see those in this accordion menu. And so what they did in their relaunch was just get rid of the images. They just cut them out. They have a list of ingredients there. They're linked to, you can interact with it. You can visit that ingredient page if you need more information. But they just basically thought, we don't need this image in there, which is fair enough. That's also an assumption you can make. You don't always need to compress. You could just say, this image provides no extra value to my users. I'm going to cut it out. Maybe it's a bit lazy, but you can also think of this in a more sustainable way as well. So you don't need to load all of those heavy resources. But yes, and as we just mentioned, they do have some issues with their site migration, and yeah, the pros and cons of this relaunch. So hey, Lush, please sort it out. My next case is EMP, which is a merchandise store. So you can get cool band t-shirts, you can get Harry Potter figures, you can get a Rick and Morty cup for your mum, all sorts of things on here. I think it's mainly in the Germany and Austria and Switzerland region, but you'll have something similar in Australia, I'm sure. And these guys are not doing too well either. And I wanted to pick them out because they had, out of my data set, they had the highest CLS scores, or some of the highest CLS scores. And I think fixing these issues are really going to improve their website overall. So let's dig into a few examples of what's happening. I like to take GIFs of the pages rendering and loading to also prove to key stakeholders just how much is jumping around. You may have to slow it down. And there's also really cool tools out there by like Defaced of showing you those layout shifts in a GIF. But my sort of advice to you is also to take these screenshots to show what is happening. So in the first instance, there's a special offer banner. Oh, wait. Yes, sorry, there's the outline. So there's 3 for 2. And then the breadcrumb menu expands. Where is it? Yeah. Oh, yes, it's like Harry Potter / media. And then it's going on to 2 lines. So that's expanding. And then this exclusive promotion appears. So it's pushing all the content down again. So lots of different things going on that is pushing it down there. And now EMP are also struggling a lot with high first input delay. So we can check again in Chrome DevTools to note those long tasks here on this thread. So you see those blue parts there. Again, more ways you can visualize these issues to your stakeholders. And yeah, I've already showed you this diagram, but just to show you again, when we're reducing first input delay, we need to keep this main thread as empty as possible so that people can interact and in the browser can process incoming requests. Like on the right homepage, we've cleaned up a lot of our first input delay and total blocking time issues. And now there's so much space for activities, so much room for activities. I love this film, Step Brothers, and I had to include this.
Amazing.
Great meme.
Right?
It's so good.
So that was just a quick one, but it takes me very swiftly to Whole Foods. They are selling bikes and car parts and stuff, so like DIY things. And they're having, again, a lot of issues, like really focused around cumulative layout shift again. Now, I mentioned this to some UK SEOs that I know, and they're all like, we're always discussing Halford's websites. They have a lot to improve. So hopefully they've been listening. But CLS here is 2.3, 2.4, 2.6, and normally CLS has a maximum of 1.0. So yeah, that's pretty devastating. Again, in Chrome DevTools, as well as visualizing those long tasks, long tasks, you can also visualize layout shifts as those little diamonds there. And I'm going to do another trace, but here you see it's a bit more extreme. So there's this loading animation, there's the main navigation popping up there and some unstyled text. Then the body copy appears, the sort of obligatory COVID-19 banner that every online shop has to have pops up and pushes everything down. The image appears, and then the cookie banner appears, and it is just coming from up and down and right and everywhere. So my Web Vital woe number 4 is that space has not been sufficiently reserved for those static elements. So implementing placeholders like these sort of dashed lined boxes there and reserving space is a must for your images and your banners above the fold that have a chance to appear later on in the page's paint. If you're using React, by the way, a nice little tip, what we do it right is using a skeleton UI. So it's sort of this kind of shadow there where you're going to see the data populate. And it just makes it clear that something is happening. And you can use this pretty easily on your website. So I know that some publishers have it as a placeholder for their text and hero images. And of course, a given at this stage is really providing image dimensions. So you're reserving the space. You're telling the browser to reserve the space as well. And you can use something called aspect ratio boxes in CSS to really, really avoid those unwanted shifts. The 5th case, so I really started off strong with Brewdog, and now I'm just whipping through the other cases because Brewdog is extra special, is Mindful Chef, which is kind of like a HelloFresh grocery box in the UK. And, you know, they aren't doing so well either. That's the sort of common story. And another sort of side note here is that there's specifying a very strange canonical on their homepage. So I do urge them to fix this as well, is that their homepage is canonicalizing to an undefined URL. Weird. But to troubleshooting CLS again, it forced me to come across another signature issue. So flashes of invisible or unstyled text. And actually, I kind of prefer the fallback font here. I don't know about you all, and maybe it's just a question of taste. So this is happening again, like there are these flickers that you can see in the film strip when you're hovering over it in the performance tab there. And you can find when the font files are being downloaded and executed. And you can make sure that these are being preloaded. So you're prioritizing, again, you're telling the browser that this is a very important file that should get a higher priority over some other assets. And another problem is the way that they have this really stylish background image for mobile that was crafted just for the homepage, even though they forgot to account for the subtitle. But this background image is a huge 4 megabytes. And this really goes back to the sort of quick wins you can achieve with your image compression and resizing. But something they also should look into is preloading their critical assets. So it kind of refers again to the prioritization queues, just to make sure that these are being rendered before the non-critical assets. And they have preloaded a lot here, which is kind of strange. You know, they are preloading a lot of JavaScript files there, but this isn't good either. You should also make sure that the browser has the right information of what to prioritize. And if you're prioritizing everything, then there is no real priority in place. All they need to do is for their hero image and for their fonts is to add this line here. So preload my hero image as an image, preload my font as a font. And this is going to make sure that the browser knows exactly those are critical for the pages above the fold, styling, and they can get that information as fast as possible. A little tip for you all is to look into the console and you can, find which preloaded assets aren't used within the first few seconds of the page. So you can identify which can be deprioritized again. Okay, so at this stage I got a little bit exhausted. There's a lot of website thrashing going on. Let's have a nice little success story. And I just wanted to quickly mention some efforts that we've been working on at Right. And say we, I mean my development team. Like the good thing of working at a tech company is you have a lot of developers, and at an SEO tech company, those developers care a lot about SEO. So it's been really easy for us. It's not going to be that easy for all of you, I'm sure, but maybe you can learn from some success stories we've had in achieving some pretty good scores that you see there. So we're using Next.js, the front-end framework. Now, React is becoming the popular framework out of this kind of Angular and React war, especially in Europe. I don't know how it is in Australia, but yeah, it's kind of nice that our software is built using React, so we have a lot of talented developers in-house who know this framework already. But to optimize the setup even more, we're using Preact. This is kind of a React alternative. It gives us the same functionality, but with a much more lightweight solution. It actually reduced the amount of data we needed to download the page by 20%. And apparently the implementation was quite quick and easy. It's just some dependencies needed to be exchanged. So maybe that's a little tip for some of you using React. With some font optimization to really speed this up and to make sure there was none of these flashes. Bless you, Nick, because untied. Little sneeze there. We're hosting our fonts on our own domain, and we're using the highest standard of font data format. That's WOF2. WOF is a nice word to say. And this is automatically compressed. We're using the font display swap to make sure that the text is visible as quickly as possible, but it's not only optional to avoid any flickers. So if the browser doesn't get the font in the first 100 milliseconds, it's going to use the fallback option. So maybe sometimes when people come across our website, they're not seeing the most optimal font, but when they return, the cached font will appear instantly. And this was the best balance for us. And actually, this improved apparently 5 to 8 performance score points for our performance score. And our largest contentful pain culprit was the cookie consent screen. So this little pop-up down there, we're using user-centrics as a nice little tool to help us out there. And it's very convenient, but the consent screen was the LCP content element. And this happens a lot to websites, maybe more so those ones affected by GDPR. So when the page load is done, what we do is we wait for human interaction. Maybe you can see in the JavaScript there. So the mouse move, the key press, a scroll, a touch, and so on. So what we're doing is we're waiting for this human interaction, and then everything that is registered as a human interaction that a bot doesn't do, then we fire the consent plugin so that they can accept or deny. And this way, Googlebot, sorry. So when we're auditing the pages, they're not coming across this LCP culprit. So a little bit sneaky, but it worked out for us. And actually, we also ran some performance optimizations for the cookie consent screen. And what we're doing as well is preloading via the link HTTP header. So via the link field, we preload fonts and files again. So telling the browser that we need these files, better start downloading them now. So when the HTML is already being executed, the file that's needed to style or whatever is already there. I've shown you some ways of preloading via the head, but in our case, we found that it's more faster for us to preload it via the link HTTP header because of all the Next.js files we have. So in general, it could be good to avoid preloading too many assets, as this can really mess the browser's priority heuristics, but it works pretty nicely for us. And caching, lots of caching. I didn't mention caching at all today, but that's a great performance optimization. We have a really nice CloudFront CDN setup for caching static files, and this speeds up delivery as it's serving files from a local from a location closer to them, and it doesn't need to travel too far from our servers in Frankfurt. Usually only some files are served this way, so only a sort of fraction of them, but we also send the HTML document over the content delivery network. And this was apparently one of the biggest improvements that our developers made, because they had around 30 HTTP requests, and this saved a lot of latency. So my final Web Vital woe is assuming that Web Vitals can be resolved alone. Whereas, a lot of your SEO efforts can be done to evangelize the Web Vitals and the website UX necessity. But it's also really about working together with your web development teams, with your UX teams, your CROs, and all coming together to create a really, really high quality on-site experience. So at Right, we have some wonderful developers in Munich and in Vietnam, and they can really pioneer these things together. Not everyone is as lucky, I know, but I also try to encourage you to really work together closely with your developers here on getting those improvements made. So let's just go through the Web Vital woes very quickly. We're out of time, but here's my little TLDR. So too many third-party scripts interfering with the critical rendering path. So again, loading with async or defer, cutting out all unnecessary third-party resources and just making a habit of identifying those that are no longer in use. Creating this prioritization for your JavaScript and CSS assets, so splitting them into critical and non-critical, bundling them together to create more manageable scripts and preloading the most critical ones. Optimizing your images, so always be compressing. Use an image CDN that can also really help with delivery. Lazy load any images that live below the fold, especially on those heavy category pages. Image SRC set I didn't get to mention today, but that's great for scaling across different devices. And just assessing their purpose. Maybe you can cut out some images like Lush did. Space has not been sufficiently reserved for static elements. Fix those with specifying width and height dimensions on your images and your iframes and your ads. Implementing placeholders or fallbacks. Avoid placing ads above the fold, and do not lazy load content that's above the fold because that can cause a lot of flickers as well. Critical assets not being preloaded. Fix that by preloading them. And by assuming Web Vital wins can only be achieved by one team. So try and resolve that by evaluating all those issues and prioritizing based on the impact on revenue and users. Just recommending fixes to your development teams rather than saying, we need this implemented. You can recommend, you can give your judgments, but they will always know best. Always track your potential uplifts on KPIs after changes were implemented, because you can use this as evidence in future iterations and communicate all of your learnings and findings. So thank you so much. That was a lot, I know, but best of luck with your Web Vital optimizations and on creating more fabulous websites for everyone. Thank you.
That was honestly absolutely fantastic and really deep dives. I think I don't know about everyone out there, but I've already downloaded a Chrome extension that I didn't know about before, which is a nice little look at the redirection path. I used to use Yimo, but the link tool is one that I kind of quickly
cool.
saw. I was like, what a nice little Easter egg in there. Thank you so much, Izzi. That was phenomenal.
Thank you.
We had a lot of really phenomenal questions from our audience.
Wow.
And I'm just also mindful of time because I really am wanting to get to Josh's presentation. So I might just do a little bit of cherry picking. Peter, I popped them all in the private chat if you want to help me go through some of these.
Sure.
Also, thank you so much to Gaston and to Peter Machinkovich, who shared some good tips in there on the chat as well. So if anyone is picking them up, I won't read them out here, but definitely go back and have a look at.
I will,
Yeah,
there's quite a lot of questions here by the look of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
But perhaps maybe I'll start with one from Gaston. And the question here is, this was earlier on actually in your presentation, on the Brewdog case. Why did you choose TBT but not LCP? That looked like a bigger issue. He's saying here, 1.8 seconds versus 20 seconds is what it's showing here in the question from Gaston.
Great question.
Yes.
Priority
Good
listing.
question. Yeah, so I chose that because I had so many examples related to LCP in my initial audits, and actually Brewdog were doing a lot of, when I mentioned with the images, that was contributing to their heavy, largest contentful paints as well, their uncompressed images. And to me, that wasn't such a sexy example. Like, that's something I had quite often during the presentation. I really wanted to focus on their issues with lack of prioritization and also having way too many third-party scripts. So that's why I focused on total blocking time. But good observation there, looking through all the data.
Mm.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
just trying to cherry pick again the sort of the most interesting cases for you all.
Yeah, absolutely. This is maybe a good question again from Gaston Riera. So shout out to him over in Perth. Have you found any particular way to handle comments from non-SEO management when it comes to comparing the origin summary, like, to field data to lab data?
Oh, yeah.
That's a good question.
Definitely a good question. So I always try and explain, using this comparison of saying, okay, one of these metrics is so helpful. So lab data is so helpful for really diagnosing and just keeping a very, very close eye on during your optimizations and in identifying sort of gaps in your, your content quality, your tech debt, and so on. All these different gaps that could surface at any stage. But I also like to use the field data as a way of prioritization. That's mainly what I'm using field data for. And then I can kind of aggregate them and sort of bring them together with our performance KPIs. So yeah, that's sort of the difference I make. And I think it's really a sort of a way of something you need to do using education and, just trying to make it as clear as possible to internal stakeholders, those key differences and the different purposes there. Maybe also being a bit consistent with your teams. If you have any internal performance teams, you can also communicate with them and see what tools they're using to evaluate and to benchmark existing performance. Because I feel like it's much easier when you're all on the same page with what tool and you're not really like upsetting stakeholders with many different insights and evaluations. Yeah,
right.
Amazing.
I'll jump on to the next question. This one's from Robert Dixon, and he actually had some question here about the data in your study. Were the decreases in the core web vitals specific to any specific sites? For instance, WordPress versus Shopify, or e-commerce versus services, that kind of a question. Did you see anything on patterns in the platforms?
Unfortunately not, but that is definitely a really a next study I want to do, is also get more granular in what kind of CMS it's coming through, if there's any sort of notable similarities in plugins being used, in content types, all of this stuff. So yeah. Thanks, Dixon.
Yeah, because obviously some platforms we don't have the leverage to really get under the hood and change up the code as much as we want to. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, these things I work together with my data science team on, and they're needed to create some features as well. So these kind of studies, I feel mean, taking their time away from them. I want this information to go out to the public with, and they're like, yeah, we want to find out as well. But yeah, we also have these other priorities. So that's also a battle. I mean, they're interested to help, but I have to be mindful. But definitely something I want to do next. Yeah.
You're doing some phenomenal work here, because I think everyone, when we're wanting to look at these kinds of issues, I think for talking to non-technical people in the room, they're always just wanting to look at the cost versus benefit analysis of this stuff. And when you can be able to bring in these kinds of studies to contextualize you versus the rest of the industry, the rest of the technology stack that they might be choosing, it's really, really good for them to sort of have something to be able to measure against. So, really appreciate these kinds of studies. I'll answer the next. Yeah,
you're going to
go for
ask?
it, Peter.
I was going to.
No, you're in a roll, bud. You're in a
just
roll.
one from Peter Machinkovic, because
That was the one
this
I was
is.
going to choose. Perfect.
Oh, well, you were going to.
Yeah.
I will hand it back to you then, Nick.
No. Please.
Well,
I talk too much anyway.
No, just simply, it's actually a good kind of a question here. How do you handle something like crow tools, which are affecting your CLS and other metrics where the entire layout has changed for the users?
Yeah, that's something I haven't investigated too much in, but it's very interesting. I mean, it's also something we have to consider as well in educating our colleagues in the UX and CRO teams, right? It's like, even when implementing A/B tests, you have to be very mindful of what effect these changes could have on performance and stability, because maybe it's not the variation that's putting someone off from converting, it is the impact on performance. It's on the shift that it's incurring. So I haven't done too much investigation into this, but thanks again for the tip. But it's really something that they have to be aware of during the implementation, because some CRO tools can do the kind of like hodgepodge, like quick, hacky, dirty way of implementing something, and this can lead to issues, with the appearance, the stability, and so on. But there's got to be some evaluations gone into the variation as well to see, hopefully there's nothing affecting the results of this test. Yeah.
Amazing. I really want to ask one last question and bookend it. All right, we'll just go one last question and then we will have to move on. But this again, just the quality of the presentation. So many people have had some fantastic questions. So if your question wasn't answered here, go find Izzi on Twitter or LinkedIn. I've put the descriptions and the things below. But the last question, have you seen many ranking changes after its rollout was completed? Like any insight you can be able to share with us there? It's perfect for like that cost versus benefit analysis. What can we sort of expect from doing all of this hard work?
Sure. So not yet. Actually, so our migration is happening very gradually, because we use quite a few CMS. So we're also working on bringing all those CMS into one that we relaunched onto. So I do want to do this kind of analysis. I mean, we've seen definitely like positive improvements to our user engagement metrics. For example, positive increases to decreases to bounce rate, better time on sites, etc. But also we've changed a lot on the website in this migration. We've done like a whole rebrand. We've done a big rebrush. We've added new content. We're mentioning all different aspects. So it's really hard to pinpoint it. And it was again one of these issues. We have so many different people working on a relaunch, which is great, but it's really hard to isolate what is causing these improvements to user engagement metrics. So what I'm planning on doing is, as we relaunch it to other sites of the website, is trying to isolate those changes and say, okay, this is because we have significant improvements to the performance now. Now, I don't have any information or update on the actual organic performance. So at the moment, I cannot say with confidence what impact Web Vital increases had on rankings. Not yet. Not with confidence. Yeah.
It's funny. I'll add just one point there. If anyone's sort of wondering like what the impact is, like sometimes with some loading with scripts and things like that, they just take too long and they basically just time out as well. So anywhere from like really, really terrible to I'm not even able to pass anything on this page because all of the elements are basically just spinning out. That will eventually lead to server issues or other kinds of things, and those pages will eventually just de-index, all the way to other aspects where that it was actually a client, and once we got that all that Yum fixed, they had a 500% increase. They had a massive section of all their products basically de-index. and a massive 500% increase in their traffic, and I think it was something like 120% increase on revenue. Anyway, so there was this study that I did with that client after that. And then another issue with like one of our clients that actually Josh and I both work on, where we went through and rewrote all of the legacy code, and I've even got like some of the we use like Screaming Frog with the API to be able to look at the page speed insights for across the entire site. Was actually looking at like, okay, across the entire site, where are the heaviest loading elements? Across all the category pages, across all of the product pages, across all of these things. And actually, let's graph this and look at this like at a macro scale. And again, like I've got that. I think it's pinned in my Twitter as well. If you want to have a look at what that will look like as well. But that saved like 18 minutes or something insane.
Amazing.
But, this can have really, really good impacts. And again, you're so right. It's hard to attribute like what those things are, but they are really, really important when you look at, all the things that Google are coming out with to say, what are the kinds of signals that they're wanting to competitively go after to be able to, just to be able to like, go after those top positions for these competitive keywords.
Yeah. I think we'll have a lot more information as well in the next months, because the summer was full of a lot of stuff. It's summer for us, it's winter for you, right? Yeah, this is always really confusing for me. But the past few months were really turbulent. There was a lot going on. And I think in the next few months, we can really try and take a breather to see what happened. And thank you, Chris. So looking forward to that. Thank you so much, everyone. I need to jump to my meeting.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, Josh, I'm going to miss your talk, but I'm going to rewatch the recording afterwards.
You've even got asked to do private consultations. So again, guys, find her on Twitter, find her on LinkedIn. All the information is captured down below in the description. And of course, thank you so much for that. That was absolutely phenomenal.
Oh, thank you so
Peter.
much.
That was Izzi. That was amazing. That was amazing.
Thank you so much.
Super insightful. Yeah, love watching that. That was incredible.
I had a great time. It was a very fun morning. Now, Josh, best of luck. It's going to be fantastic. Can't wait to watch it later. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks so much,
Thank you,
Izzi.
Peter. Thanks, audience.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Izzi.
Izzi.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You too. All right, Joshy. Okay, so we're now talking about content strategy for enterprise level clients. Now, when we're talking about enterprise level, these are the big sites, the ones that generally, like from a retail perspective, might drive like heaps of traffic, heaps of conversions, has a ton of authority. Now, how do you sort of look at an enterprise level site and be able to focus on the growth of that? Well, this is really what we're here to tackle here today. And Joshua Poole is no stranger to this. So we're going to be really, really excited to be able to look at his presentation. Have you got the share button?
Yeah, just clicking in now, Nick.
Beautiful. And again, guys, if you want to be able to reach out to any of the wonderful panel members here today, all of the details are in this description below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I'm going to do that little YouTube spruik. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and of course, like that notification bell every time that we do release a new video and things like that. But we will be, of course, we're seeing it in the presenter's view at the moment. So
is that
beautiful?
Is that better?
Perfect, my dude. Alrighty. So without further ado, Joshua Poole for content marketing.
Cool, awesome. Thanks, Nick. Thanks for introing me in. Izzi, she's gone, but that was amazing. I'm sure everyone got so much out of that. I know I did. Obviously, Core Web Vitals is on every SEO's mind at the moment. So it was awesome seeing those kind of case studies. And we all need those case studies too to actually prove to our clients that what we're doing is needed. And it's important to get that buy-in. So yeah, awesome, Izzi. She's gone, but really awesome. Yeah, so today I'm going to be talking about SEO content for enterprise. The reason why I'm going to be talking about this today is how, just how important content is for websites and web pages, and how important high quality content is. And time again, as you know, as we all know, that saying, content is king within the search or SEO space. Time and time again, what gets results at times really quickly is content, fresh content on the site, updating old content, creating new content, any kind of content that's obviously high quality and of value to a user and actually answers a user's query does go a long way. So I'm going to just do a bit of a workshop, go through how it can work for clients and how you can apply it to the clients you work with or websites that you own. A little bit about me, kind of already touched on that, but I work at Studio Hawk, an SEO manager, focusing on managing, training and hiring specialists, also working on campaigns, sometimes small businesses to large enterprise. And I love cooking tasty dishes and chatting with people. What I'm going to cover today is rolling out an SEO content strategy for enterprise. So we're kind of talking about scale here. It's not, a couple of blogs or whatever. It's definitely sort of more at scale. So, I'm going to touch on what it is for enterprise, how it's different to just an average size website, project planning and workflow, which is super important. The planning and workflow for this is, just as important as the actual SEO research and work. Working with internal, external teams, post types. So there's so many different post types, or, page types, same thing really. But yeah, so there's so many different ones we can kind of create. Touch on search intent and page formatting, super important, post formatting, briefing, on-page SEO, and just various optimizations that you can include or add or incorporate to increase performance, and also relevant measures of success. Super important that we actually measure the success of or what we do or what we recommend, so that who we're working with, also gets to see that success and gets to buy in even further to what we're recommending or doing. So next slide, just to really cover or really kind of discuss what content is for enterprise. So it's kind of like an art and science to it. As SEO definitely has, there's a science to SEO. There's definitely a science to what we do. And it's scaling large volumes of website content for large websites or large businesses, really large businesses, using various post types. And I've underlined post types because that's so important, because there's so many different post types that you can create and publish on a website. It doesn't just have to be one type. And targeting different search intents across a large range of relevant keywords. Keywords always want to be relevant because we always want the traffic to be really relevant to the site. We don't just want to generate random traffic to a site. It's obviously got to be relevant. And it's easy to get caught up into when you're going after large volumes of a large spread or range of keywords to kind of just go after anything that's kind of related, but it has to be relevant. So first we need to plan and set up the content project. So this is where we're working with internal, external teams. And as I said at the start, it's, this is just as important as the SEO sort of research and recommendations and strategy and, content marketing, etc. First, we really need to benchmark the current position. We need to understand, has the, the business or has the, e-com platform, this slide deck does reference e-com quite a bit, so keep that in mind too. But does, what is their current position? Have they ran a proper content strategy before, or have they not? Have they got a subfolder, or have they got subfolders for their post types or page types, or how many keywords do they rank for? How much traffic from let's set aside their products and product categories. Let's just talk about content aside from that. How much traffic's actually coming to the site. We want to set achievable goals as well. So achievable goal could be, maybe they've got a blog subfolder or a buying guide subfolder, or a learning hub. Maybe achievable goal is in a year they want to grow their traffic by 30%. And these achievable goals have got to match their current position. So maybe they're already generating massive amounts of traffic. So you can kind of really go after some high kind of stretch goals, or maybe they don't even have much content happening on their site, and it's purely just product categories. So that's where your goals are kind of going to match. Then you've got to create a content calendar as well. So understand their trends, seasonality you're going after, really understand the niche, in the markets. Do you need to include stuff around Father's Day, Mother's Day, Boxing Day, Black Friday? Maybe they've got some like specific sort of tailored trends within their niche. The next thing you want to do is set appropriate timelines. So, and this all needs to be discussed before the project starts, but, how many content pieces per month? Length of time to create content piece, reviewing, editing times, because what I find is once the project takes off, the SEO sort of consultant or whoever's kind of, the SEO tends to be quiet at the helm of this kind of project, because they're kind of, they're kind of navigating their way through the whole thing. So, all of this needs to be set with who you're working with. Like if you're working with content writers, you're working with other specialists, web page publishers, whatever it is, you really need to set those appropriate timelines. And that kind of comes into the next slide. And we need to allocate roles to each party. So, who's the specialist, who's the SEO specialist, who's the content writers? Are the SEO specialists and content writers the same person or persons, or are they separate? Who's going to be publishing these pages? And who's also on the client side? Who's the point of contact or the manager that you're going to be mostly speaking with? Who's kind of held accountable on their side? Because generally the person publishing the page in kind of like a enterprise campaign is not really the person who's held accountable. They're usually two different roles. And another thing is regular meetings to stay on track. That's super important. Otherwise things don't get done sometimes, so we need to really stay on track. Now we've got kind of, the layout, kind of, the who does what and what kind of timelines in place and all that. Now we kind of start to dive into the actual sort of SEO research and to really get the content campaign off the ground running. So first, we want to research your unique post types. So they're going to be specific to a niche or to a website. So various post types we got here are buying guides. So everything a user needs to know when buying. Whether it's fridges or microwaves. Product reviews. These are great to actually generate transactions off a content piece that's not a product or a product category. You can talk about if you sell, if your site, if you sell headphones or vacuums, if you actually sell smart fridges, people are kind of searching, what are the best of that kind of particular product. Just to keep it really kind of simple, basically, if you're selling 10 types of headphones, you can just list out all your headphones and review them. Even have experts, write on your website that are, expert within that niche and actually review them, which would be even better. And that kind of matches the search intent and gets people kind of, looking at products that you sell. Trending, hot topics, really important, viral trends, trending keywords, sales seasons, articles, mostly informational, posts relating to a niche, generally. Gift ideas, Father's and Mother's Day gifts, if it's relevant, of course. How-tos, if you sell washing machines, great how-to could be how to clean a washing machine. A massive search volume behind that. And it just sort of gets users coming to a site that you've got products. And I've just got a diagram on the right just to sort of, show you guys what that can look like with a bit of a content hub going. And then you've just got sort of subfolders stemming off that that are, that kind of intertwine. And there's more post types than this. So this is just an example. But yeah, there's so many more. Now we kind of get to, once you've got kind of your post types going, you need to start getting into kind of the nuts and bolts on what kind of topics or what kind of, keywords basically we're going to go after. So keyword research is obviously really important, but the search intent post formats are super essential here. And search intent kind of has two phases to it. You've got the actual search intent behind a keyword. Then you've got, the second phase, which is how to format a page or how to format a post to match what users want to see when they're actually digesting that content, which is super important. So keyword research and search intent. So, first type is, identify primary topics and subtopic clusters within, a specific topic. So you've got the one topic, whichever that may be, which is very primary. Usually the search volume is going to be quite high for that, not always, but usually. And then you've got the subtopic clusters that come off that. And you kind of have to work out what's a secondary keyword that relates directly to that one primary topic, or what's kind of an actual, secondary keyword or topic that deserves its own page. And that's where the clusters come in. And you can sort of, internal linking come, which I'll talk about later, but, sort of linking networks come into that and all that kind of stuff. It's really important to spreadsheet these up as well, just to actually know what you're going after, and then identify the types of search intent for each topic. So I've just put in like the main four here: transactional, commercial, informational, and navigational, which, it's even better to kind of allocate each search intent to the each topic. But keep in mind, like, transactional is generally going to be products and product categories or of that nature. What I mentioned before with like the best of, best headphones or best washing machines or whatever, that's generally going to be more commercial. Yes, there is transactional intent behind that, but it's not purely transactional. There's still a bit of informational in there. People want to still doing a little bit of research, still comparing products. Yes, they may buy, which we see time and time again, really high quality commercial based posts with amazing reviews and you know, a mix of images and multimedia. Definitely will encourage users to make a purchase. But yeah, as I said, not all users are going to make that purchase. But what it shows, commercial posts are a great way to show authority, bring in relevant users to the site, and yeah, just another way to get seen or get kind of visible from a query. Now the post type will also relate to the search intent, which I kind of just gave an example of there. You know, a best of would be commercial, where, you know, how to clean a washing machine would be informational. Now, just to kind of sort of touch on this a bit, it's just a little diagram I made. Yes, it's not too flash, but just wanted to break down search intent further and compare it to the purchasing funnel. Now, obviously, the purchasing funnel is like an old school marketing theory or whatever. And really, we've got, I've removed navigational from here, just in this scenario. But just looking at the three common, navigational is still common search intent, but three other common search intents, which is transactional, which is where users are close to buying. And then we've got commercial, users comparing products and wanting to learn more. And then we've got informational, users beginning their research about a topic, generally, not always, but really just wanting to, you know, got a query and they need an answer to their question. Now we can have, you know, for a business, you know, it doesn't even have to be enterprise, but really for any online business or a business with a website, they really need to be making sure they have content or pages, posts on their site that matches each of these search intents for particular topics. And the reason being is that you want to make sure that when a user searches, you're being seen, you know, your business is being seen in any way, shape or form relating to that topic that's closely related to your business or the purpose of your business. You know, if you're selling, you know, if you've got a large site or you know, you work with a large site and they sell, I'm going to use washing machines as an example again, transactional. You know, you've got your products and your product categories, which work great for transactional. Users that are close to buying, you know, make sure you've got your product categories that are targeting all the transactional based keywords, and etc. But then if we move down to commercial, this is where users are comparing products and they want to learn more, but they're not really ready to buy yet. Some of them may be close to buying, some of them maybe not, but they know they need to buy soon. Some of them may be, you know, researching in November because they know Boxing Day is coming up or Black Friday is coming up at the end of November. So they know there's going to be a sale going on. So they could be researching a month before or 2 months, who knows, or maybe longer. It depends on the product and the decision-making process for that product. You know, if it's a car, it could be much longer than that. But they're wanting to see, basically users here wanting to see products that they can buy, and they want to compare between the two, or between multiple you know, as I mentioned before, the best of or the reviewing the list of products works really great here. Then we've got informational. So people really kind of beginning their research or you know, about a specific topic, or got a question that needs to be answered, or maybe they've bought one of the products that you sell and they want to learn how to use it or how to take care of it. You know, and as the example before with the washing machines, like maybe you sell washing machines and someone buys a, you know, $1,000 washing machine from your website. But then, you know, 3 months later, it's super dirty and something's happened. They've washed something that they shouldn't have washed in there or whatever, and they need to clean it, you know. And how to clean a washing machine has such big search volume that, you know, now they're using, you know, they're still coming back to your website, you know, and they're actually sort of watching a video or whatever about how to clean their product that they bought from you. And that's great for, you know, authority within the space, growing authority, always being there if a user searches or makes a search. You're always seen, no matter the search intent. And yeah, it shows that it shows that a website's super helpful. Because all really, you know, this obviously wraps up into, you know, the actual keyword itself, and all keywords are is just, you know, the basic kind of economics. They're just supply and demand. You know, demand is the search volume, and supply is the actual page or post that you've created. And you want to make sure that your post is meeting the search intent, is formatted correctly. So it actually meets the demand or where that search is being searched from. Now to jump into post types, or post formats, sorry, which just relates to the overall structure of the post. So formatting the post will be guided generally by the top 3 results of the target primary keyword. So yeah, not always the case with the top 3 results, but generally, you know, you can say that, you know, if the top 3 results of those web pages of that search result, sorry, are all formatted in a particular way. You know, prime example is, you know, any kind of interior design sort of niche. You'll notice that anyone that kind of ranks in the top 3 or top 5 or whatever, you know, their posts and pages are filled with images. You know, there's not much content. You know, you don't need long form content to rank really well in the interior design space. What you really need is great images, great videos, even image carousels. You know, time and time again, you know, image carousels rank really well, and then they've got like no text. You really kind of have to understand the niche that you're going after, and you could have, like, you know, it really depends on the keywords you're really going after, because you could have an e-commerce platform that isn't in an interior design space or isn't in the renovation space necessarily. You know, a client that I'm working with at the moment, they don't really sell, you know, trade tools or whatever, but they really want to go after renovation kind of topics because they fit our kitchens, and they kind of sell like kitchen packs, etc. And to really go after those renovation related keywords, a lot of it is relating to the design space. So they've had to kind of kind of format and restructure how they actually produce content, just for that instance. Now they're using a whole sort of range of images and videos to kind of really cater to that search intent or the real format that needs to be used for for that specific niche. Types of formats, that you can include, listicles, tables work great. Tables and dot points are great for featured snippets. See time and time again, featured snippets are filled with kind of dot points or even tables, content, held within tables. As I said before, use of images and videos goes such a long way. Not just search intent, but quality of content. Having a mix of not just text or headings, but images, videos, keeps users on the page longer, increases sort of positive user behavior, and just keeps users generally more engaged. Now, once we've got the format right, for this, for a specific keyword or a specific topic or cluster or whatever, we really need to get to the briefing stage. An example I'm going to use here is if like a SEO isn't the writer themselves as well. So we've got the briefing. If you don't have a good sort of briefing, template, create one. Use one. These actually work so well. A briefing kind of informs, it does a few things. It informs the writer, exactly what the writer needs to do to ensure SEO success. Writers love this stuff because they're going to get a brief, and it gives them everything they it answers all their questions that they generally have when someone says, hey, I need you to write a topic. It also helps the client or the marketing manager or your point of contact really on the client side to understand what the article is going to be or the post or whatever it is going to be about, or the landing page, the seasonal landing page is going to be about before it's actually created. And what we find too is, like, if anyone's worked with sort of content managers or content creators or whatever on with a client, the content's generally very dear to their heart. They really take great pride in the content that they release on their website, which they should. These kind of briefing formats, they love it because they know what they're going to get. They know what the article is going to be about before it's written, and they kind of know what to expect. And some of the key things, I've just touched on some of them, but this brief's like a bit longer than this. But like meta tags, you can talk about title tags and meta description. Make sure that's all sort of clearly set out, potentially before the post is even written. What I generally do is just leave the meta description after the content's been written. Sometimes the content writer creates it or whatever, but that does help. You've got the URL, you've got the key message and SEO objective. What's the objective of the page? Is it a landing page like that's targeting Black Friday sales? Or is it is it tips and tricks on how to shop for during Black Friday? Is it to just inform users, some tips on how to shop, or is it kind of to get users to buy? What's the key message, the purpose? What are the keywords you're going after? Primary instead of long tail? Any trends? Target audience we got down there. Who are you trying to? What kind of audience are you targeting? Also the heading structure. So that can get pretty in depth as well, because you kind of, probably could have included a bit more of the brief there. But that's where you can get a bit creative. It's one thing I like about content marketing or strategies is you can get super creative with the actual with the topic itself, and the you can only get it's still going to match the search intent and the format of what users want to see, though, of course, and the headings are so important. To get it's not just about getting the title right or the H1 heading. It's like the post has to be structured in a certain way that really ticks all the boxes for what users want to see within that specific keyword. Internal linking is really important. So it's great, fill out all your internal linking within below each subheading. Are you going to link to products? Are you going to link to product categories? Are you going to link to other posts that have been created or pages? Internal linking is a great way to improve crawlability of the site. If you're working with a large site, especially an enterprise, level business, you could be dealing with thousands and thousands of pages, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands potentially. So any page that you're really publishing, whether it's a blog or whether it's a buying guide or another product category or whatever, you really need to be making sure there's quite a lot of internal linking going on. Obviously, whether it's relevant and not just putting links in for the sake of it. But it's super important. And even, if we use, like, say, a blog or an article, maybe an informational topic as an example, and you've got your 8 H2 headings, you got your few H3s in there that break down whatever H2 it's situated in, at least having, one internal link per paragraph, or within each sort of subheading section. Depending on how long your paragraphs are, of course. If they're not that long, then yeah, it is case by case. But you definitely want to be making sure that internal linking is a priority. Another great one too, which really helps content writers, is top ranking articles for reference. And I always make this a real I always highlight this quite a lot when I start working with a new content writer. If I'm working on a large scale project, is that these articles that we're going to show you, these are ranking really high, and these are like for your reference. So it kind of shows you what kind of content Google is wanting to see, or what kind of content shows enough value to a search engine. That search engine deems, to be a top ranking page, so that when a content writer is getting in there, they kind of know what they're in for. Also, just informs the client as well what is ranking in the top 3. What is high quality, because each niche is different. Sometimes you're working not really for enterprise, but when you're working in a niche that's doesn't really have, people haven't really done SEO in that niche before. There hasn't really been a lot of strategy there. Sometimes this top ranking articles are really low quality, so it's quite easy to rank. Where, say, if you're working in a, obviously with enterprise, generally it's super competitive. Generally a lot of the other websites or businesses within that space are already kind of running, or you'd be surprised, but we've all seen some large enterprise e-com retailers, just speaking in Australia here, don't even have a content hub, but when it is really competitive, they can. And so top ranking articles, it can be super high quality, so it's great for both, all parties to see that. So you can see kind of the briefing side. Now, just to jump into some kind of maybe top line optimizations to apply to increase performance. Obviously the first step is really matching the search intent and getting the format right. Make sure the quality of content's high and the briefing's really solid. The briefing is very important. It has to be really solid. Internal linking's there. The subheadings are good. It matches the research. Now it's time to kind of, optimize kind of on the page and also kind of, off the actual post that you're publishing, still on the website, but off the actual page itself. If they don't have, if the website or business or enterprise business doesn't have a content hub page, make one. There are, definitely a number of large retailers in Australia that aren't hitting the mark with this, and some of them are. Some of them are, have got a really extensive, content hubs, and they're really reaping the rewards from that. The rewards from that. The amount of authority that some of these sites have, and the amount of traffic and just visibility that they have. They've kind of made it almost near impossible for other sites to really kind of gain space. A really prime example of that is Bunnings. Everyone in Australia that's on this webinar, Bunnings is they sell, they're in like the trade space, and they sell tools and barbecues and outdoor stuff and heaps of other kind of products, and they've very much dominated the market here in Australia, online and also offline. And their content hub is second to none. Internal linking. Also, you can, just to go back on the content hub, you can make that look amazing. You can get that really creative, and that's where you can really partner up with the client you're working with or your point of contact, and kind of make that its own project on itself if it doesn't exist already. And as I said, get really creative. See what other people are doing worldwide, not just within the country that you're situated in. See what's working, see what's not. Second point, internal linking. Very important for a large website, especially, all websites, but a large website, because crawling and indexing becomes a major ranking factor when you're publishing large volumes of content. One way to overcome that, internal linking. So just, as I said before, we want an internal link where relevant, but it's definitely a major priority. Linking to and from authoritative sections of the website. There's a lot of different creative little things websites can do. Example, if you're an e-com platform and you've got, maybe you've got a whole list of collections, category pages, and maybe you sell within, you've got 10 different verticals. One of them is, I'm just going to use washing machines as an example again. You've got a washing machines vertical and you sell front loaders and top loaders and, everything else. You can have a tab on your, or a little internal linking widget or whatever, near the facet navigation or whatever on those category pages that internally links straight to your latest posts, your latest blogs, your latest buying guides or whatever on washing machines. Great way to, push authority to those new pages that you've just released. Search engines or bots really are going to crawl that at a much faster rate than if they were deep within a content hub. It's there's many different things you can do there. Create a glossary page, is very important. You want a page that, because if we go back to the content hub, as you build out way more content, you can't really have everything featured on your content hub or on the front facing of your content hub. Yes, you can have sliders, post sliders that holds, say 10 or 12 or maybe more, 15 posts, or, don't want too many. But you can have sliders that, users can click, and you can, obviously hold heaps of posts in there. But as you sort of get to the, say you end up having, I don't know, 40 buying guides. You've got 500 informational articles. You've got product comparison pages, or you end up having so many that you can't have everything featured front facing. So that's where a glossary page or glossary pages comes into play. Maybe you want a glossary page for your buying guides because you've got so many, and it really depends on the amount of pages or posts you're creating as well. Especially generally, websites, enterprise sites are going to have a large volume of articles or informational topics potentially. So maybe you'll just have a glossary page for all your informational topics or your articles. I'm not sure. Really, whatever works or whatever makes sense for a website.
Hey, Josh,
I'm just conscious of the time.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we've got some great questions that we want to be able to get to. So
yeah, cool.
Yeah,
I'll skim through the rest, and then just we'll jump out. We want to, obviously sitemap XML files really important. Schema markup, super important. Could talk about that for ages. Blog posting schema markup. Additional recommendations. Latest posts or relevant post widget on a page. Reading time, publish date, essential. Social media. Channels work in tandem. So social media shareable links helps. Author bio profile as well. You can make that witty and fun if you want to. Just got a quick slide on just that, just to show it does take time to grow like a content subfolder. This is just purely a subfolder, not the site itself, but it does take time. You see on the right-hand side, site didn't have anything at all. And just by high quality content and a great team, they're able to grow that subfolder really well. Content needs to be measurable, which it is very easily able to be measurable. Ranking performance, clicks and impressions, capturing featured snippets. It's a great way to measure success. And accumulation of backlinks. If you've got really high quality content, you're gonna gain or gather organic links pointing towards those pages. Roadblocks, as I touched on, indexability and crawlability of new pages. Large websites, big factor. Multiple parties involved, moving parts involved. There's you got your writers, you got your client side, you got your side. There's so much kind of at play. And also resource constraints for large scale content rollouts. There's a lot of resources that go into play. And the content needs to stay high quality. When there's so much being rolled out, the quality can slip. And if the quality slips, then maybe it won't perform as well. So make sure the quality still stays really high. Honorable mentions, last slide. Takes time. Keep in mind, this stuff takes time. This is not a quick win to apply to a project. Or to an overarching project. This takes time. Many moving parts. Need to keep people accountable. It's really important for us SEOs. I'm just speaking on SEO's behalf here. We need to keep everyone accountable, including ourselves. EAT and Google's content guidelines needs to be taken into account. I didn't want to really go into that too much with this, just because that's like a whole thing on its own, and it really depends on the niche as well, on how much that actually weighs in. And I'm just kind of talking about e-com here, and also celebrate the wins. Super important. Celebrate with the client, and everyone you're working with. If you get a massive featured snippet and it's drawing a massive traffic to the site, it's even making sales, celebrate that. Cool. Thanks, everyone. So that kind of covers the slide deck, everything about content and SEO. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Josh. That was awesome. That was really, really great. And we've got some really, really good
Thanks, Josh. Really
questions.
detailed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to really quickly just go back to the start of the presentation, and just really want to highlight really wanting to make sure like who's responsible, who are the teams like on the client side, like on the copywriting side, and really establish those roles and responsibilities is so key to really make sure that that there is going to be meaningful follow-up, because a lot of the time when we're talking about content strategy, it can just kind of go off the rails. It can be deprioritized, and the question that I think a lot of CMOs will bring into meetings is like, well, what's the value of all of this work? Like, what is it going to be able to do? What is it going to be able to provide? But really, what the growth of any good SEO campaign is really what this looks like. It's measurable. It's content. It's that strategic growth, and really being able to plan out from all the different search intents what that actually does look like. So we've got some really great questions from the chat. Thanks, guys. Peter, would you like to kick us off?
Okay. Let's see. Oh yeah, Robert Dixon. Any digital tool recommendations for scaling up content for enterprise level clients? Things that are only worth it when you're producing content en masse.
Yeah, really good question. First thing comes to mind, and it's what we're kind of like seeing people starting to talk about, and it's content created by AI, because then you can actually sort of write bulk amount of content in a short space of time. The quality isn't, is very sort of debatable with that. Maybe in 5 or 10 years, maybe things will change. Maybe sooner, I don't know. But that's one thing about scaling up the actual content creation itself. I've never tried it. I probably wouldn't recommend it. I think the old-fashioned way of someone writing content is much better than a machine at this point. But like really with scaling up content, if you need to be using really solid sort of tools. There's great sort of topic recommendation tools. There's a great tool like Answer the Public, which gives you insane amount of topics for title topics for a specific primary topic. It's all really about the amount of topics, but also the kind of manpower or people that you have that's actually willing to put in to actually create the content itself. That's probably where the most focus would need to be.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one when you were talking about AI and things like that, like GPT-3. It's very much here. It's on our doorsteps, and we're seeing tools be rolled out that is basically just dynamically just stripping things straight out of the HTML and writing them as just long form content. We looked at that with Linguistats recently. And what are the kinds of things that it can just do, from like just taking product information and then spitting that out as a paragraph text. Really super interesting stuff. I'll go to the next question. So Charbel asks, how do you get the buy-in from a client running a big e-commerce store that doesn't really see the value in blogs, given that they're more informational and less transactional in nature? Thanks. Great question.
A really good question. Case studies are really important here, and competitor reviews. Looking at case studies, seeing what worked and what hasn't is a great way to communicate to a client and actually show a client what works and what doesn't. Looking at competitors within their niche and their space as well is super important. And obviously communicating that in a really simple and easy to understand way. Because when you're getting the buy-in, say if a client doesn't have, or say whoever it is, maybe they don't even have a content writer, or maybe, I don't know, it depends on their situation. So they potentially might be paying money for this to be created. It's communicating this in a really simple and easy to understand way. Another good way as well, like a third option, is to even trial the strategy itself. So that's where you can kind of, trial run out these sort of informational topics, because clients, they really just, at the end of the day, some just want to make money, and that's kind of their big focus. So, you do have to, meet in the middle somewhere. But even just trialing out a bit of a blogging strategy or some kind of content marketing strategy and seeing the performance, because it's going to work. If you've got a good tight-knit strategy, it will work. And once it works, the client will be more on board to actually get a bigger buy-in to the strategy itself.
Yeah, 100%. And I always think like, doing like keyword gap analysis are really, really effective ways of just being like, well, here's your competitor. Look at they've got a content hub. They've got all this really, really great blog content. And we can be able to see like, they rank for all of these informational and commercial, where they're sort of like just trying to do like comparisons and trying to figure out and qualify, from the buying, from the purchase decision, like all these keywords. And look, it's bringing in heaps of traffic through these keywords. We could be able to see that from third-party tools. So, it's massive opportunities that you're just leaving on the table.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more.
Alrighty. Nikita Singh. So she asked a question, how do you work out how many keywords you should be focusing on in your strategy when scaling up for enterprise level clients?
Depends. Really depends. Like, it depends, the value behind each keyword. Depends like what it's going to bring to the site. If the client really wants to, if there's loads of great keywords or great topics and subtopics to go after, that's going to be of value to that site, and you've got the resources and they've got the resources, and everyone's sort of happy with what they can do, then there's kind of like an endless amount. You're not going to go overboard and spread yourself too thin, but there is no limit. But it is also, as I said, you don't want to spread yourself too thin, and it's great to kind of space out certain topics and subtopics within particular niches and sub niches of keywords. Maybe if a business really wants to grow, just use the example again, washing machines, we'll really hone in on that topic and those subtopics within washing machines. You're not going to kind of, do a couple of posts about one topic and then go to a completely different topic and kind of, try and do something there and dart around different areas and see what sticks. It's great. It's more about kind of the topic itself and how, and just kind of really honing in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And Peter, the last question of the night, do you want to ask this one?
The one here from Fitzera Lifestyle. Best ways to automate internal linking, or do you go at it manually?
Really good question. Nick and I were actually talking about this the other day. I don't know what day it is anymore when we're in lockdown. It's the same.
It's a little bit like that.
Yeah, but it was very recent, the last few days somewhere. There are tools that you can use. I haven't personally used the tool itself, but there are tools where you can use where it basically will go through. Say if you want to internal link a specific page on the site and work out where to actually internal link it, especially for large enterprise sites with potentially thousands of pages. Where do you even start? So if you've got a page, you got an anchor text, maybe the page name, because that really, you want to match the anchor text to the page name. There are tools you can use. Nick, you probably remember the tool, can't remember which one you were talking about, that will basically go through the site and work out where that bit of text or that word or that phrase has been mentioned. And it'll kind of spit out the pages where that phrase has been mentioned. And it'll give you a great starting point. Maybe you get a list of 50 times that phrase is mentioned, or 50 pages, and there's your 50 pages to start off with. Obviously, you can do it manually. That takes a lot of time, and there's ways. It takes a very long time. But there are tools. Nick, I can't remember. Maybe.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to jump in on this one. So, like when you look at internal linking strategies, there's kind of like three ways you can do it. You can be able to just do site colon your URL plus keyword, and that will be able to generate and spit out like a list of results in the SERP that search engines basically are already perceiving to be considered for that keyword. So if you have on like any of those pages that are listed, like like we mentioned here, like again, washing machines, and we want to be able to point that internal link back to like the washing machine category page, but there's no internal link that points to that page on those pages. When you do those searches, that's a really easy manual way of doing it. Typically, that's a really nice way to do it, but as you can probably appreciate, it will take you a long time. Second way, manual. So I love Screaming Frog, use it all the time, and actually one of my colleagues, Nikki, showed me how to do this one, and it's really, really awesome. So basically, you can look at the CSS selector and just look at the body content. So it will take out the menu, it will take out the footer, and it's only looking at all the paragraph text and all the heading text and things like that of just the body content. You can do that across your entire site. You can, with Screaming Frog, basically just like punch in all the keywords that you want to look for: dishwasher, washing machine, etc., 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 and punch all those keywords in there, and then it will, from that CSS selector, just crawl all of that HTML and then produce lists of pages associated with that keyword that is there. And you can be able to then basically just dynamically mine through all of that and just be like, well, there's some great opportunities here, because again, the paragraph text, we don't see any sort of associated internal links. So that's a good way of doing it, a little bit more scaled, but again, very much manual. Now, the automated way, which is, I think, your really, really good friend, Peter, Dixon Jones's tool, InLinks.
Yes,
so InLinks, the way, we got there in the end. InLinks is a phenomenal tool that will basically do what Scream Frog does, but basically just goes through the whole thing and will be able to dynamically add in internal links like with JavaScript. All that is being able to pass and be able to be read by search engines. And I think they even took out, like, I think the world title of like the best tool. I forgot exactly what it is, but I just saw, like, in the World Search Awards, they won the best tool, and couldn't be more happy for Dixon, because he was a previous guest in one of our webinars here for SEO Collective. So wanted to give a bit of a massive shout out for that. Good old manual way. Yeah, and Everhearts also says, like, Screaming Frog can also give you a unique inner links and in-links count. Absolutely. And if you any crawl that you do with Screaming Frog will always be able to give you a good counter of like in-links, outlinks, and like unique link in-links, etc., etc. When you're actually just scrolling across when you do any crawl, just off the bat. So, even if you're just using it without, you don't need to pay for it. You can crawl up to 500 URLs in there for free and be able to get that kind of detail. Similarly, SEMrush and Sitebulb and Rank Ranger and a bunch of other tools all have, like, within their site audit tool, ways to be able to look at the weak to the medium to the strong internally linked pages. And again, if you're looking at assigning a priority, it's a good way to look at it. Sorry, I kind of went on a bit of a rant there about internal links, but yeah, they're pretty impactful. Alrighty, guys. Josh, thank you so much for your time. That was really, really awesome. Like super detailed, going through every single stage of the journey that an SEO really needs to be able to liaise with the client, and also how to sort of determine the priority list for ourselves as well. So thank you so much. I think another little round of applause for you there, dude.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Awesome to be on here. Awesome listening to Izzi. Great to be with you, Peter and Nick. Yeah, awesome. Really awesome to have me on here. Really appreciate it a lot.
Absolutely.
Nice to have you.
All right, and if you want to be able to chat to Josh, if you want to be able to chat to Izzi, to Peter, Mead, or of course myself, you can be able to find us like on Twitter or on LinkedIn. Again, all the bio stuff, all the good stuff to be able to find people after this will be in the description underneath this. And thank you so much for everything. And cheers. Thanks so much, Chris. All right, stay safe, and we will see you in the next one with Leo Soulas as he's going through with Keyword Cupid and looking at semantically related LSI keywords. Fun stuff, guys. See you in the next one.